It was deemed inconceivable to traverse the vast, dark void between star clusters, but the Terrans achieved the impossible. They emerged in colossal Arkships, miraculous constructs that defied the laws of physics, as large as moons, thundering onto our cosmic shores at breakneck speeds. These leviathans bristled with terrifying armaments and impregnable shields, each a marvel of technology beyond any known imagination. Their superiority in technology and weaponry was unquestionable, but their intentions were unknown, threat or opportunity. The first to discover this were the Krathians, a fiercely insular empire scarred by eons of conflict. They made no attempt at diplomacy when the Terrans breached their territory. Perhaps things might have unfolded differently had they tried. Instead, they launched an immediate assault, and the Terrans swept through their fleet as if it were nothing. Thousands of ships were obliterated in an instant, barely slowing the Terrans' advance. The Terrans broadcast a message. What happened to the Krathians was regrettable, but they had been the aggressors. The Terrans came in peace, claiming their mission was to safeguard the galaxy. They implored submission, promising no harm if their demands were met. For the greater good, they vowed to liberate us all. The galaxy's political landscape at this time was a tangled web of alliances, rife with perpetual conflict among ancient rivals. In an age dominated by warfare, where slavery and genocide were commonplace and sacrifice was routine, no one was willing to trust the Terrans. Their pleas fell on deaf ears as the annihilation of the Krathians sent shockwaves through space. Every empire rushed to defend itself, meeting the Terrans with hostility at every encounter. To their credit, the Terrans showed restraint. They pleaded with each empire for peaceful submission, but pride, hardened by millennia of war, prevented any from yielding. Soon, their reputation as harbingers of death and destruction spread, and the word Terran became synonymous with doom. Their enormous Arkships descended upon the galaxy like a relentless storm. Seemingly invincible, it didn't take long for each major homeworld to find a Terran Arkship ominously orbiting it like a loaded weapon. They promised salvation, security, progress, and abundance. But within a year, the entire galaxy was subjugated to servitude. Propaganda flooded communication channels, extolling the greater good. Every being had a role in the grand plan, though the Terrans never explained what they were saving us from. It was a time of monumental change. Technologies so advanced they seemed mystical became commonplace. An interstellar network was established, allowing instantaneous information transfer across unfathomable distances. A universal currency was introduced, forcing species to cooperate like never before. Yet, the Terrans were not benevolent overlords. Efficiency and productivity reigned supreme. Beings grew old and died in the same jobs they were assigned in their youth. The marvelous technology served only to strip planets of resources and advance the Terrans' wealth. The galaxy transformed into an intricate production chain where every non-Terran was a mere cog. No one understood their place in the vast machine. Choice and freedom were non-existent. The Terrans' rhetoric of salvation, unity, and common good fell flat when every waking moment was spent toiling in the depths of a dark mine. Their motto, an iron hand in a velvet glove, encapsulated their rule. They often masked their tyranny with pleasantries, but failure to meet quotas led to harsh improvements. The velvet glove came off, revealing the iron fist, and smiles turned into grimaces. When beings are treated as mere tools, rebellion becomes inevitable. Early on, the Grindari revolted. Esteeming themselves as noble warriors, they refused to be crushed under the Terrans' heel, despite their own history of enslaving others. The Terrans responded with a single devastating bioweapon, a virus that ravaged the Grindari homeworld within days. Decimated, the Grindari workforce was quickly replaced by other species, barely causing a ripple in production. The Terrans' announcement spoke of the galaxy's greater good and a shared responsibility for the future. They were seen as monsters, but they claimed to be fighting a greater evil. Many dismissed this as a fabrication to justify their atrocities. Effective though shameful, it broke the will of the galaxy. No one dared to rebel thereafter. Less than a century passed in this servitude. Then, abruptly, the order to cease production was given. For the first time since their arrival, the galaxy ground to a halt. The Terrans' preparations had finally come to fruition. Another intragalactic threat had been detected, approaching from the same direction the Terrans had come from ages ago. It was much sooner than anticipated, with only a year remaining before their arrival. As the broadcast changed, a wave of collective dread swept over the galaxy. Ships millions upon millions, some far larger than the Terran Arkships, were hurtling through space towards us. Sinewy and grotesque, bristling with spikes and oozing foulness, they looked like living nightmares. Terrans called them the Devourers, ravenous and mindless abominations, twisted by endless hunger. The greater good had been genuine. The Terrans had battled these creatures across the universe for ages, making desperate stands to annihilate them. The Terrans arrived ahead of the Devourers to unify and prepare the galaxy's species for a final stand. The Devourers' sole aim was to consume all life, leading to total annihilation. In every previous galaxy, revealing the truth about the Devourers had only induced panic, dooming them to failure. The galaxy's only hope lay in Terran rule to organize, entrench, and fight to the bitter end. Immediately following the announcement, the fruits of a century of forced labor were unveiled. Massive Terrans, empowered exoskeletons, descended on every planet, bearing vast arsenals of weapons, armor, and vehicles. Entire populations were evacuated and trained for space warfare. Every able-bodied being was armed and prepared for battle against the invaders. The Terrans were not the tyrants they had seemed. Their assertions about the greater good had been genuine all along. They regretted not revealing the truth about the Devourers sooner, wishing they had had more time to prepare. A different side of the Terrans emerged then. Their former aloofness was revealed as quiet resolve. Their harshness in driving the workforce was revealed as determined preparation. Every sacrifice made had been for the greater good. The Devourers, upon arrival, were everything the Terrans had warned us about. They were relentless, savage beasts, intent only on destruction, devouring all life in their path. Their assault was chaotic, driven by sheer numbers. In space, they launched unending waves at the Allied fleets without concern for their own losses. Their ships, impossibly swift, could somehow detect sentient beings targeting enemy vessels to ram at near light speeds, then sprouting limbs to tear through metal. The Arkships and their escort fleets, now manned by former slaves, were locked in relentless combat. Any defeat in space allowed Devourer ships to make planetfall. Once landed, countless drones would swarm, tearing apart any living being they found. The combat was brutal. Billions perished daily as the coalition, led by the Terrans, fought for survival. Despite their small numbers, the Terrans fought with divine ferocity on land and in space, always at the forefront, never faltering. They inspired those around them to fight with relentless courage and even to sacrifice for the greater good. The war raged on for decades, often teetering on the brink of defeat. But the Terrans' bravery, planning, logistics, and tactics turned the tide repeatedly. The cost was staggering, with trillions lost to the Devourers. But in the end, the galaxy triumphed. It had been an unprecedented, brutal, and harrowing conflict. Cities were razed, planets thrown off their axes, and returning soldiers found their homes in ruins. Lost in despair, they turned to the now revered Terrans for guidance. But the Terrans had vanished. No celebration, no farewell. The surviving Terrans simply departed into the vastness of space in their Arkships, heading towards the nearest galaxy, leaving behind the fruits of a century of labor technology and resources that rendered scarcity a thing of the past. Shortly after their departure, a message arrived from their direction. It read, "We are sorry. There are others we must aid for the greater good. Now you are truly free, even from us."